Aramis briefly outlined his plan to the newly liberated prisoner seated opposite him in the carriage. "You are Prince Philippe," he said, "the son of King Louis XIII and brother to Louis XIV. As such, you are the natural and legal heir to the throne." Here the prince challenged him. "Suppose my and do you, his prime minister, and do you suppose your brother's conscience protested when you were imprisoned?" The prince was silent. "Now," Aramis went on, "I have sent your highness detailed notes to acquaint you with the different people who make up your brother's court. Have you studied the notes?" "I know them by heart," the prince assured him. "We shall see," replied Aramis. "Let us begin with your family. Your mother? Anne of Austria. Your second brother? A fine, dark young man with a pale face. Very good. Do you know the king's two chief advisers?" "His prime minister, Colbert, an ugly man with dark brows and hair covering his forehead, ugly, but shrewd and intelligent. And the other?" "Ah, yes," said Prince Philippe. "He to whom the crown of France owes so much that it owes everything, the captain of the king's musketeers, D'Artagnan." "Yes, and be on your guard with him," warned Aramis. "It is an awkward situation. If he discovers our plot before I have revealed it to him in my own way, you and I will certainly be arrested or even killed. D'Artagnan is a man of action." "I will keep that in mind," replied Philippe. "And you, Aramis, what will you get out of all this?" "You shall elevate me to Cardinal of the Church," said Aramis, "and also appoint me your prime minister. And then you will secure my election as Pope." "Agreed," said the prince. "And so, tomorrow my brother will disappear?" "Exactly," said Aramis. "We will remove him from his bed by means of a secret plank in his bedroom wall." "But how will all this be accomplished?" asked Philippe. "I have been making plans for some time," explained Aramis, "ever since the king agreed to visit Monsieur Fouquet." "And does Fouquet know of your plans?" "No, but he shall, when the time is ready. In the meanwhile, he has followed my suggestions for changes at his chateau, and my own workmen have followed my plans specifically. Yes, Prince, your brother will retire to his bed a king, and awaken a captive. From that moment on, you will rule. But the most urgent thing for you to remember is to keep me near you." "I well believe it, monsieur." 7. The King's Party. The festivities were to take place at the Château de Vaux, the estate of Monsieur Fouquet, a wealthy nobleman and Louis Minister of Finance. The château rivaled the king's own palace in splendor. Adorned inside with paintings and outside with statues and fountains, the estate almost glittered in the sun. An army of servants hurried to and fro as the guests anxiously awaited the arrival of the king and his attendants. "To think that the king will be here in an hour," said Monsieur Fouquet anxiously. Then turning to Aramis, who was standing nearby, he added, "Believe it or not, monsieur, the king does not like me much, nor do I care much for him. But ever since he consented to visit my home, yes?" encouraged Aramis, suddenly interested in Monsieur Fouquet's words. "He has become more dear to me. Do not laugh. He is my king. And I feel that if he were really to wish it, I could love that young man. But, listen, I hear the trumpeters." In a short while, the king, preceded by trumpeters, guards, and D'Artagnan's troop of personal musketeers, presented himself at the gates of the Château de Vaux. From the moment that Fouquet kissed the king's hand in greeting and throughout the excellent dinner, Fouquet was the perfect host. He was overjoyed at the king's pleasure, especially when Louis XIV exclaimed to him, "It is impossible, monsieur, to dine better anywhere." Later, though, the king became gloomy and moody, worrying to himself, "Have I shown too much pleasure over Fouquet's food? Is his chateau even more magnificent, better furnished, and staffed by more servants than my own royal palace?" Finally, as the evening drew to a close, the king was conducted with the greatest ceremony to his sleeping quarters. His chamber was the largest and handsomest in the chateau. Under Aramis' helpful direction, Monsieur Fouquet had it completely redecorated in anticipation of the king's visit. The chamber's vaulted ceiling was painted with different scenes of slumber. Along with flowers and birds, the artist had also painted wizards and phantoms out of man's darkest dreams. No sooner had the king entered the room than a cold shiver seemed to pass through him. Meanwhile, D'Artagnan had decided to visit Aramis, whose room was on the floor above, directly over the king's. "Do you know what idea occurred to me this evening, Aramis?" began D'Artagnan. "No, tell me," replied his old friend with a smile. "Well, the thought occurred to me that the true king of France is not Louis XIV. "What?" gasped Aramis, his smile now gone. "No," said D'Artagnan, noting the instant of fear which showed on Aramis' face. "It is Monsieur Fouquet, who has given this magnificent party and behaved so splendidly." Why yes, of course," sputtered Aramis. "And you, of course, have helped him immensely," D'Artagnan went on. "But was it necessary to refurnish the entire house? When Monsieur Fouquet learned of the king's visit," began Aramis, now calmer, "he said that if he were rich enough, he would offer the king a chateau that was new from top to bottom, inside and out. And that as soon as the king had left, he would bum the whole building and its contents, so that it might never be used by anyone else." "Incredible!" exclaimed D'Artagnan. "And would you burn the portrait too?" "What portrait?" asked Aramis, puzzled. "Why, the portrait of the king, that surprise of yours," D'Artagnan reminded him. "The one for which you obtained suit patterns and samples of material from the tailor the other day." "Oh, that," said Aramis with a sigh of relief. "A little gift, that was all, to welcome the king to Vaux." D'Artagnan went up to his friend and, looking him full in the eyes, said, "Aramis, that may be the story for everybody else to believe, but for me, upon my word." "D'Artagnan," cried Aramis, "whatever do you mean? My instincts tell me that you have some concealed project afoot." "What nonsense! I would swear to it," said the captain of the musketeers. "Oh, Aramis, we are not enemies, we are brothers and have been for many years. Tell me what you wish to undertake and, upon my word, if I cannot help you, I will swear to remain neutral." "I am undertaking nothing," insisted Aramis. "Aramis, a voice speaks within me, and it has never yet deceived me. It is the king you are conspiring against. The king! Exclaimed Aramis. The king, I repeat, said D'Artagnan firmly. Believe these words, my friend, said Aramis. If I think of touching, even with my little finger, the son of Anne of Austria, the true king of France, if I have not the firm intention of kneeling before his throne, if tomorrow, here at Vaux, will not be the most glorious day my king has ever enjoyed, may a bolt of lightning strike me down as I stand here before you. As Aramis spoke these words, he was close to an alcove draped over with heavy curtains. D'Artagnan, staring intently at his friend, did not notice the alcove, could not suspect that those curtains concealed a figure. Since the sincerity of his friend's words reassured the musketeer, he took hold of both of Aramis' hands, shook them warmly, then turned to go. "Are you leaving so soon?" asked Aramis. "Yes, my duty summons me. I will be on watch outside the king's chamber tonight. Then I shall see you in the morning," said Aramis, and they wished each other good night. Chapter 8. The Switch. While the two friends were talking in the chamber above, King Louis XIV gently closed his eyes and fell into a deep sleep. Then, as in a dream, it seemed to him that the god of sleep, painted on the ceiling, looked at him with eyes quite human. A human face seemed to move among the crowd of figures overhead. And what was even stranger, this face bore so close a likeness to his own that Louis fancied he was looking in a mirror. His bed began to sway, a gentle, easy movement like a ship lapped by waves. Then it seemed to him as if the paintings on the ceiling were becoming smaller and darker. The bed seemed to be sinking away from them. Doubtless, the king was dreaming. The light remaining in the royal chamber faded away and was replaced by darkness and gloom. No paintings or velvet hangings were to be seen, nothing but walls of a dull grey color. "I am under the spell of some terrible dream," thought the king. "I must wake up." But even as he thought this, the king realized that not only was he awake, but that he had his eyes open too. Louis looked around him. On either side of his bed stood armed men wearing masks. Addressing himself to the nearest figure, the king demanded, "What is this, a jest?" "It is no jest," replied the figure. "Tell me what you want," pleaded the king, "and you shall have it. Will you be good enough to follow us?" was the curt reply. Then, without waiting for an answer, the masked men rudely pulled the king out of bed and shoved him along a winding passageway with many staircases leading out of it. As he stumbled along, Louis heard the sound of falling water over his head. Finally, the passageway ended at an iron door, which opened out into the balmy night air. "Just what do you intend to do with the King of France?" Louis asked nervously. "Try to forget the title," advised one of his captors. "But tell me, at least, where we are going," begged the king. "Come," was all he was told, as the men helped him into a waiting carriage. The carriage set off at a quick trot, and, some hours later, rumbled into the circular drive of the Bastille. "Go and wake the governor," said the coachman to a guard at the gate. Monsieur Basmx soon appeared at the door, clad in his nightgown. "What is the matter now, and whom have you brought me at this hour?" "Why, monsieur!" exclaimed Basmx, recognizing Aramis, his mask now removed. "Hush!" said Aramis. "Let us go into your office." "What brings you here at this hour?" repeated the governor. "A mistake, my dear governor. It appears that you were quite right the other night." "About what?" "About that order of release," explained Aramis smoothly. "You remember that I persuaded you to release that poor prisoner without first checking with the king? I told you something was wrong," wailed the jailer. "Yes, my dear Basmx, it was all a mistake. You released the wrong man. Alas! What is to be done about it?" "Don't worry. I have recaptured him and brought him back. He is in my carriage now. Monsieur, how can I ever repay you?" "By not saying a word of this to anyone," said Aramis. "And let no one talk with the prisoner. He is out of his mind, and thinks he is the king. But enough now, go and conduct the poor devil back to his dungeon." As if in a trance, Louis entered the cell of his twin brother without a word. At first, he fancied he was dead, and that death-like sleep had its own terrible dreams. Then a strange sound attracted his attention. He looked around to see an enormous rat calmly nibbling on a piece of dry bread. And Louis knew that he was, indeed, alive. "A prisoner!" He cried. "A prisoner!" He cried out. I am a prisoner. It must be a plot of Fouquet's, since I was in his house. There is a governor in this place," the king continued, in a fury of passion. "I will speak to him. I will summon him." The king called, but no voice replied. He seized his chair and hurled it against the massive door, but no one responded. He pounded on the door, over and over, but with no better success. Accustomed all his life to being obeyed, Louis trembled in rage at being ignored. His blood began to boil within him. By degrees his anger increased, until his fury knew no bounds. Like a tiger, he leapt from the table to the window and shook the iron bars. He broke a pane of glass, and shouted out the window until his voice grew hoarse. For fully an hour he ranted on, until his strength was gone. By morning his hair matted on his forehead and his clothes in tatters. He could not be recognized as a king, a gentleman, or even a human being. And by then, the king clearly understood how thick the walls of a prison are. Chapter 9. The plot is revealed. After the royal bed had deposited the king in the secret depths of an underground passage in the Château de Vaux, it rose again to its chamber. Likewise, the domed ceiling slowly sank under Aramis' touch, stopping several feet above the head of Louis XII as he stood beside his brother's bed. As Philippe looked upon the empty bed, still warm from his brother's body, he felt like an intruder. "Away with this weakness," he said to himself. "I, and I alone, should have occupied this bed if I had been left in my place in the royal cradle. Philippe, son of France, take your place on that bed." And with these words he threw himself down on the king's bed. Towards morning, a shadow glided into the royal chamber. "All is done, sire," announced Aramis. "Did he resist?" asked the new king. Oh, terribly. Tears and pleas. But in the end, it was a complete success, Aramis answered him. Just then there was a knock at the door. Who's that? Asked Philippe nervously. Probably someone your brother had an appointment with this morning, said Aramis, going to the door. Let me handle it. Ah, Monsieur Fouquet. You have come to see the king? Yes, whispered Fouquet, and just between the two of us, I'm afraid he is most upset with me. He seemed angered at my attentions to his favorite lady of the court, Mademoiselle Lavalier. But it was just politeness on my part. Don't give it another thought, replied Aramis, stepping out into the hallway. The king wishes me to inform you that he is more than ever your friend, and that your beautiful party has touched him to the heart. What? I thought I was going to be arrested. Come to my quarters, said Aramis, and I will explain everything to you. Why is the king suddenly so pleased with me? Asked Fouquet once they were seated in Aramis' chamber. Is there something I do not know? Yes, replied Aramis, knowing he could benefit from Fouquet as an ally. A secret? Fouquet prodded. Yes, a secret. Do you remember the birth of Louis XIV? As if it were yesterday. Have you heard anything that might have sounded strange about his birth? Nothing. That is where my secret begins. And I shall share it with you. The queen was delivered of not one, but 2 sons. Twins. And the second is dead? No. Both children grew up, the one on the throne, whom you serve. The other was brought up in the country, and then thrown into the Bastille. This poor prince was the unhappiest of men until God rescued him. Oh? In what way? You will see. Being exactly alike, both ought to have been kings. Is that not so? Certainly, agreed Fouquet. Twins are one person in 2 bodies. I am glad to hear you say that. And Aramis walked softly all around the room, satisfied himself that they were alone, and then returned to Fouquet. Now, what does God do in order to substitute one king for another? Aramis asked. God sends his agent, Death, to seize one king and thus makes room for another. But don't tell me you have killed the king, cried Fouquet. Not at all, murmured Aramis. We have simply substituted one rightful king for another. For you see, God has formed them so like each other that only he could tell them apart. What? Cried Fouquet. What do you mean? Go to the king's chamber, suggested Aramis, and see for yourself. King? Stammered Fouquet. What king? Asked Aramis, in his gentlest tone. The one who hates you and was going to have you arrested, or the one who likes you? The king of yesterday. The king of yesterday, the crueler, the less intelligent king, has gone to take his brother's place in the Bastille. Great God! You have dethroned a king? Exclaimed Fouquet. And to think that such a crime was committed here at Vaux, under my roof. Fouquet's voice came out half strangled. Crime? Protested Aramis. But he was going to ruin you. Have you forgotten that? He was my guest, he was my king. Aramis trembled with rage. You are speaking too loudly. Take care. I will call out so loudly that the whole world will hear me, declared Fouquet. Have you lost your mind? Not for a minute. You have dishonored me. I do not thank you for saving me from ruin. But I will at least not ruin you. I am going to the Bastille to rescue the true King of France. While I am gone, you will have 4 hours in which to leave France before King Louis sends his soldiers after you. 4 hours? Sneered Aramis scornfully. Where do you expect me to go in 4 hours? It is more than you need to board a ship and flee to Belle Isle, which I give to you as a place of refuge. Come, let us both go at once, you to save your life, I to save my honor. And they left the room, with Fouquet leading Aramis down a secret staircase which led to an inner courtyard. Listening as Fouquet galloped off, Aramis paused to collect his thoughts. God. Demon. Lost, I am lost. What can be done? Flee to Belle Isle alone? No, I shall take Porthos with me. My old friend will not question or refuse me. Aramis strode quickly down the hall to his friend's room. After knocking at the door several times and getting no answer, Aramis turned the knob. Pushing the door open, he saw Porthos sound asleep. Hurrying toward the bed, he shook his friend. Come, Porthos. You must get up and dress quickly. We are going on a mission. Porthos obeyed, rising from his bed and opening his eyes even before opening his mind. And where are you two going in such a hurry this morning? Came a voice from the open doorway. It was D'Artagnan, standing there and regarding them curiously. My old friend, said Aramis to the captain of the musketeers, there is no time now for explanations. All will be revealed to you soon. Now, take your leave of 2 old musketeers. And the 3 of them embraced. Adieu, adieu. And Aramis and Porthos were off. If it were anyone else, thought D'Artagnan as he watched his friends ride off, I should say that those 2 were making an escape. Chapter 10. The King is rescued. Fouquet's carriage tore through the early morning mist. On the way, he trembled with horror at what had just been revealed to him. Arriving at the gates of the Bastille flushed and breathless, the nobleman stormed into Basmex's quarters. Monsieur, said Fouquet sharply. Basmex turned pale and wondered if he would ever grow accustomed to these unexpected visits from the king's friends. You have seen Monsieur Aramis this morning, have you not? Demanded Fouquet. Why, yes, answered the governor of the Bastille. He had some business to attend to here earlier. And are you not horrified at the crime which has been committed? What crime are you talking about? That for which you can be butchered alive, monsieur. Do not forget that. Now, conduct me to the prisoner that Aramis brought here. Gladly, monsieur, said Basmex. And if you have come here to remove him, so much the better. How do you mean? Asked Fouquet. Ever since his return, he has annoyed me extremely with his terrible fits of passion, explained the jailer. I will soon relieve you of his presence. Ah, so much the better. Conduct me to his cell, ordered Fouquet. Certainly, if monsieur will kindly give me the order. What order? An order from the king. I don't want to release the wrong man again. If you will allow me to see the prisoner, said Fouquet, I will give you an order from the king at once. Give it to me now, monsieur. If you refuse me, I will have you and all your officers arrested on the spot. Stop! Cried Basmx, throwing up his hands in despair. I understand nothing of this whole affair, and I wash my hands of it. So, let us go. Fouquet darted out of the room, followed by a moaning Basmx. What a terrible morning! Wailed the jailer. What a disgrace! Walk faster! Cried Fouquet. As they advanced up the spiral staircase, certain smothered sounds became clear cries. What is that? Asked Fouquet. That is your prisoner, said the governor. That is the way madmen howl. Fouquet trembled. He had just heard, in one cry more terrible than all of the others, the voice of the king. Give me the keys at once, he cried, tearing them from the jailer's hand. And leave this place. I ask nothing better. This job will kill me, I am sure, muttered Basmx as he quickly withdrew. The prisoner's cries became more and more terrible. Help! Help! I am the king? Reaching the cell from which the cries were coming, Fouquet desperately tried one key after another. The king, meanwhile, was shouting at the top of his voice. It was Fouquet who brought me here. Help the king against Fouquet. Finally, one key fit, and the door flew open. Each man uttered a cry of horror upon seeing the other. Have you come to kill me, monsieur? Cried the king as he recognized Fouquet. Oh, what a state for the king to be in, murmured Fouquet, never having seen anything more terrible than the king's appearance at that moment. Haggard, pale, foaming, his clothes stained with sweat and blood, Louis XIV was a picture of fear and despair. Sire, said Fouquet, do you not recognize the most faithful of your subjects? Faithful? Cried Louis. You? Fouquet, his arms outstretched and his eyes filled with tears, ran to Louis and knelt before him. My king! He cried. How you must have suffered! And Fouquet rapidly related to the king the details of the incredible plot. The king, speechless for a moment, could only take hold of Fouquet's hand with such warmth as to show his relief at his narrow escape. Finally, Louis' voice returned. You have not seen this false king, then? He asked. No, I have not, answered Fouquet. But I am told that he is a perfect double for your majesty, your face, your hair, your build. Whom have you seen, then? The leader of the scheme, Monsieur Aramis Tablet. Your friend? He was my friend, sire. But I have banished him from France. He is even now on his way to Belle Isle, which I had given him as a place of refuge. My musketeers will capture Belle Isle, and he shall be put to death. Let us return to Vaux and unmask the pretender, the man who is impersonating me. As they left the prison, striding past a completely confused Basmx, Fouquet gave the jailer an order authorizing the prisoner's release. It was signed, seen and approved. Louis XIV Basmx tore out the few remaining hairs he had left on his head, and began to consider other lines of work.